Welcome back once more. So here we are, standing at the precipice of the events that will usher in the dusk of the Thran Age. While tending to Glacian's condition, Yawgmoth came to a diagnosis of phthisis, a degenerative infection running rampant not only through Glacian's own body, but also through the flesh of those enclosed in the Caves of the Damned underneath Halcyon. The cause? Power Stone radiation, the integral artifacts providing a bounty of energy and the livelihood of the capital of the Thran were also what was killing them. As an emissary of revenge for the Untouchables ravaged by the Power Stone emissions, Gix led a wave of Untouchables to sweep through the streets of Halcyon, bringing nothing but death in their wake. Rebecca watched from her symbol of light, the Temple of Ascendance, hovering over all of Halcyon and prepared for war with the Untouchables. Meanwhile, Yawgmoth stumbled upon a treatment for phthisis, the properties of metal that allowed it to block magical radiation. Bringing this metallic concoction to Gix and promising that the serum would be provided to all the affected Untouchables, the riot was pacified. Because of his medical breakthrough and subsequent quelling of the riots, Yawgmoth was given a position as a council member of Halcyon. With Rebecca in the crowd, Yawgmoth made a speech of light, hope, and promised that the Thran Dawn would be reborn glorious once more. Rebecca chanted and cheered his name along with the other citizens of Halcyon. So, let us see why instead of light, Yawgmoth delivered darkness, unlike any Dominaria has ever experienced. Yawgmoth was healing the city. That was an exact quote in the recorded history of the Thran. He had discovered the cure for phthisis to both Halcyites and Untouchables alike. He was an envoy of hope. A mythos began to circulate about Yawgmoth. People claimed to have been healed by the mere touch of his cape and by a simple glance in their direction. His legend was swelling to that of near godhood. This haughty perception towards Yawgmoth was readily apparent within the culture of the Untouchables. While personally delivering the serum to the Untouchables themselves, he announced he would work on sending them back into Halcyon society, one person at a time. Gix was the only Untouchable dubious of this promise. He remembered Yawgmoth's merciless surgical knife carving into his flesh all too well. Opponents to Yawgmoth were regarded extremely poorly, and soon voices of opposition turned to whispers. Healthy Untouchables were ascended from the Caves of the Damned, while sick Halcyon citizens took their place below. So grateful for their societal resurrection out of the caves, the healed Untouchables worked on solidifying Yawgmoth's mythos and quelling his detractors. Glacian, meanwhile, as Yawgmoth's original and strongest opposition, was stuck in the infirmary trying to devise a way to wrestle back the growing control Yawgmoth had over Halcyon. Rebecca watched her husband scribble calculations and diagrams across hundreds of scraps of paper. He mumbled to himself about artificial worlds contained within the Power Stones. Those around Glacian erred on the side of phthisis delusions. However, the genius of Halcyon had indeed discovered the most intricate mechanics of the Power Stones. They were cages housing an entire artificial plane, each and every one. The immense and near infinite energies provided by each Power Stone was the mana flowing throughout the encapsulated world within. The question for Glacian then became, how could this be used to get away from Yawgmoth? Yawgmoth was already privy to Glacian's discovery, as Rebecca had turned to him asking why the serum wasn't working as intended on her husband, and describing his declining mental stability, including these perceived delusions. Yawgmoth reassured her by ordering a higher dose of the serum to see if the effects bettered him. At the same time, he had been diluting the serum passed on to the Untouchables over the intervening months, and Gix's rebellious instinct flared in retaliation. Untouchables riddled with phthisis were ordered to ascend by Gix, not yet amounting to a full-scale riot of the years seen before. All eyes turned to Yawgmoth for an answer in stopping out the potential problem. The council permitted Yawgmoth further funding for his research and development of the serum, while he instructed the Halcyon Guard on how to combat the growing threat. In effect, the trust imbued in Yawgmoth augmented his influence over the city. Yawgmoth's grip around Halcyon continued to increase as time passed. Glacier's condition worsened, and Rebecca found herself torn between spending time at the bedside of her Thysis-addled husband, at the brunt of his wild and mad diatribes, or in the company of the man she was growing to admire and rely on by the day. In the recent weeks and months, she had chosen to be at Yawgmoth's side as he dealt with the politics of Halcyon and worked on the hope of all its people. One day, a woman who was not his wife materialized before Glacier. She was dark-skinned, confidently spoken, and adamant on meeting the genius of Halcyon himself, the man whom had proven the existence of the multiverse via his artificial planes. She introduced herself as Dyfed, a planeswalker who desired to show Glacier the multiverse, if he were in a better state to do so. He dismissed her as a trick by Yawgmoth. It was no trick, however, as Yawgmoth enters the room while she is conversing with Glacier, and he questions the woman's claims. To prove her powers, Dyfed grabs Yawgmoth's arm and walks him to the plane of Perulia. Astonished, Yawgmoth is stunned, not just at the plane, or the fact that the multiverse and planeswalkers are features outside of any normal human comprehension, but that his recent ideal of a paradise can be created through Dyfed's powers. Back in Halcyon, the trickle of untouchables erupts into a tidal wave of a full riot once more. Yawgmoth returns to the capital, having fully expected this scenario. He appeals to Dyfed to find him a plane wherein he can build a paradise for the people of Halcyon. His reputation and compassion sways her into assisting him to do just that. Yawgmoth calls the council together, Rebecca included, and leads them to a control room none of them were aware of, and further unveils his innovative defense system. A simple wooden panel, specced with the map of the city jeweled with power stones. Responding to Yawgmoth's touch, the power stones allow him to remotely control all devices and systems linked with power stone technology. Yawgmoth at this point is now able to dictate the blood of the entire city. With this ineffable control over the entire city, including the council, the Halcyon Guard, and all power stone technology within the walls, Halcyon once again pacifies the invasions of Untouchables. At sword point, he gets Gix to swear his loyalty to him, as Rebecca gazes at him in wonder and astonishment. The fires of rebellion had finally been stamped out under his boot, while his hand constricted utterly around Halcyon's throat. His authority was unquestionable. The council cowered in his presence, while the citizens cried his name. He promised to end the riots, and he had done so. He promised to eradicate the Thysis, and he was on the verge of doing so. He promised to bring the Thran divinity, free of even death, and when Dyfed the Planeswalker found a virgin plane to embody that principle, that too would be done. The sun set on the Thran Age, opening the way for a very different dawn. The dawn of Yawgmoth, and his ideals of taking the Thran race to their next evolution to fulfill his promise of paradise and divinity, to take them to Phyrexia. And so, the dusk settles over the Thran Age. Technically, we're still in the Thran Age as we go forward from this point, all the way until the cataclysm yet to happen to Halcyon, but the Thran's golden era has definitely ended. Hence the dawn to dusk idea, which I grant you is a metaphor. I force like a one-land hand, okay, I get it. It didn't really work, but hopefully it served to kind of show you the illumination of the transition between dawn and dusk and through what's happened by the hands of a single profoundly influential man, Yawgmoth, whose powers change that kind of thing. So we move on to the creation of Phyrexia next, Yawgmoth's idea of paradise and Thran ascension, alongside his bolstering dominance over Halcyon. Then, utilising this control, maybe unsurprisingly, he breeds war for total domination. I will also mention I'm going to planeswalk to a mysterious white land in the north, very far from here. So in my stead, for the next little while, there will be a lovely planeswalker with very similar syllables, name-wise, who will be taking my place to take you through Yawgmoth's creation of Phyrexia and all the lovely things he does to all the just... Yes, she's got an interesting story to tell you, I tell you that. But until then, continue to release your untapped potential.